Donald Trump has come out with a fresh interview for his favorite Fox News channel. He was asked about the outcome of talks with Zelensky and European leaders. He says Ukraine's president must show flexibility in negotiations to end the war. He also expressed confidence that he would organize a bilateral meeting between Zelensky and Putin. As for the issues of territory, the American leader said that Ukraine could get a lot of land as a result, but at the same time, he mentioned the power of the Russian army. Boris, let's go in order. Let's also start with the meeting between Zelensky and Putin. Do you think it will take place, and will Donald Trump attend? Let's go by Putin's logic. Does it make sense for him to meet with Zelensky today? No, because West is asking for it, he will not respond to requests. Why? Putin thinks he's dominating on the fronts today. Badly, poorly, somewhere around 50 meters, somewhere about 100, and sometimes just stands still. And he considers it progress. He will consider it progress even when there is no progress at all. Moreover, even if the Russians retreat slowly but retreating, still he will not consider that he is losing. Until the Russians start running so that they can catch up and destroy them in time. That's when Putin will begin to realize that the wave of flight will catch up with him. Then he will beg. Not him, but he will ask to come to the negotiating table. This is the kind of state that needs to take place. Trump doesn't get it. He doesn't realize that there can be no negotiation with the enemy. The insatiable, bloodthirsty wolf cannot be appeased with talk, promises, handouts. Never. It must only be destroyed. Or scared enough that he'll run off into the dense forest there and never show up anywhere else. It hasn't gotten to that state yet. Trump continues to maniacally count on some kind of negotiation. Putin is making great use of that, prolonging this dialogue. Yes, no, if so, some conditions. Look from Putin's own team. Lavrov says one thing, Ushakov says another. One says that we should work on a delegation. There are groups of each side who will enter and what they will talk about. And the third says negotiations are out of the question for now. We have a number of issues that have not yet been resolved. Let's not gather for the sake of a gathering. In other words, it's all an excuse for the sake of continuing to attack Ukraine. We are talking to you now, and missiles and drones and Shaheds continue to fall on Ukraine. Every night, moreover, these attacks are intensified with one goal, to empty the patience of both the people of Ukraine, the people of Europe, and the Americans in order to agree to any concessions in order to stop the war. That's what Putin is counting on, I repeat, until he feels a fist, a powerful fist. That's not there yet. But after this meeting between European leaders and Zelensky and Trump in Washington, I am optimistic. What is this optimism about? First, I'm glad that both Zelensky and European leaders and Trump were on the same page. In the sense that something concrete has to be done to stop this war. That's already a positive. On top of the antics Trump has been throwing out for the last month. This meeting, it was very important. It was even, I would say, historic. Why? Let's look at the implications of this meeting. First, before we talk about consequences, let's not forget how Trump welcomed Putin. It was so disgusting, so immoral, that it was impossible to even believe that such a thing was possible. But it happened. And I believe it even went down in history as one of the most shameful pages in the history of our country. Why? Because when I compare Trump's behavior toward Putin, I'm reminded of the great, outstanding president of all time, Ronald Reagan, who, even though Russia was at war destroying the peaceful people of Afghanistan, he didn't invite Gorbachev with the red carpet to America. He didn't do that. Moreover, he did not promise him any carrots. On the contrary, he behaved from a position of strength. It was by force, it was by Reagan. The Berlin fence was torn down. Thanks to Reagan, the two Germanys united. Thanks to Reagan, the Soviet Union collapsed. His smart, forward-thinking policies are based on strength. Today, Trump has a terrific chance to do the same with Putin. And no invitations, no caresses, no appeasements. Moreover, Gorbachev also had a nuclear weapon. Reagan was not afraid of it, not at all. Absolutely. Because he knew he was 1,000 times stronger than Gorbachev, despite his superiority even then in the number of nuclear weapons. And so, imagine today, when we compare Trump's behavior to Reagan's, it's appalling. There's no comparison. The shameful meeting with Putin, the public admission that Trump's main goal of stopping the shooting on long-suffering Ukrainian soil was not achieved. Moreover, he changed his main goal of stopping the shooting to the fact that today the main goal is not to stop the shooting, but to make some kind of agreement. That's exactly what Putin asked him to do. That's what's remarkable. So after such a failure, the summit in Washington of European leaders and Zelensky with Trump, it certainly looks much more positive. First of all, as I said, the meeting went on one positive wave. Moreover, there are good results. One of them is a very important result, in my opinion, which we did not expect. Even Trump supporters did not expect. But Trump expressed the opinion that America can take over the function ensuring the security of the Ukrainian sky.
Trump высказал мнение, что Америка может взять на себя функцию, обеспечивающую безопасность неба украинского.
European countries take the security responsibility on land, most likely probably at sea, and Trump takes the air. That's amazing. Why? Because it's nothing more than a no-fly zone. That is what is very important. Therefore, there must be sufficient air defense systems, which Ukraine has been asking for how long? Imagine today when this issue came up at this summit, Trump did not say no.
Возник этот вопрос, Трамп не отказал.
He said Europe would pay, and we would supply American anti-cancer defense systems. Now, that's a big deal. Here's something very important that Trump has never said before. That's the first thing. And the second thing I'd really like to point out, Trump is not opposed to European countries driving their troops into Ukraine. That's great. According to the most recent data, 10 European countries are ready today to lead their troops on Ukrainian territory. That's great. That's exactly what we need. I'll add to you, my friends. I've said before in previous broadcasts, and I'll say it again. Someone who is familiar with our American history, even going back to World War II. Pearl Harbor happened in December 1941. And President Roosevelt immediately declared war on Hitler's coalition. Japan, Nazi Germany, Italy. Despite the fact that Roosevelt declared war in 1941, Roosevelt did not realize the second front in Europe with the introduction of American troops until 1944. There's more. Take the early 50s, the Civil War in Korea, between North and South Korea, when the Soviet Union and China were helping North Korea, and Truman publicly stated that he would only help South Korea with weapons and not with our soldiers.
Публично заявил, что он будет помогать Южной Корее только оружием и ни в коем случае не нашими солдатами.
And yet, just a year later, our troops are helping South Korea.
Через год ввести наши войска, помогать Южной Корее.
We lost 37,000 of our soldiers in 3 years of war in Korea.
37 тысяч наших солдат.
37,000, my friends, and we have no regrets. Americans never regret it. Because today we have one of the most developed democratic country, South Korea. Then there was Vietnam. In the 60s and 70s, 10 years of war. We lost 60,000 of our soldiers, my friends. There was also help from China and the Soviet Union. Our country intervened and was forced to send our troops. And that was decisive, yes. And what we have today is a rapidly developing Vietnam whose GDP growth today is fantastic, 6 to 7%. You can imagine for the last quarter, which is not the case with China or India. By the way, with neighboring countries, more developed countries, for example, it is Vietnam, thanks to our assistance at that time.
Это у Вьетнама. Это благодаря нашей помощи еще в то время.
Then there was Kuwait in American history. There was Iraq, Afghanistan, everywhere it was weapons first and then our troops. And now, nowhere but in the center of Europe, there is a young, marvelous country, Ukraine, the largest country in Europe by area, with the richest deposits of minerals, the most marvelous people, who for 3.5 years have been giving, showing examples of fighting spirit.
Изумительнейшим народом, который 3,5 года дает, показывает образцы боевого духа.
The ability to fight for its freedom and for our American values, America is slowly and slowly beginning to awaken, sending a stream of weapons, but there are already good symptoms.
Пробуждаться, вот посылает пока ручейком оружие, но уже есть неплохие симптомы.
We said in previous broadcasts just 2 weeks ago a contract was signed between the Pentagon and two well-known American military corporations, which began to produce air-to-ground cruise missiles in an intensified, accelerated mode specifically for Ukraine, and two huge concerns are engaged in this 24/7.
Крылатые ракеты класса воздух-земля специально только для Украины. Причем два огромных концерна занимаются этим в режиме 24/7.
Moreover, these cruise missiles are unusual. They have a long range of 450 to 500 kilometers. That's one. Secondly, the air-to-ground class, which is designed for the MiGs that Ukraine has and for the F-16s, the number of which is now being increased. This is according to a military source, a Pentagon bulletin. And moreover, the distinguishing feature of these cruise missiles is that they fly at an altitude of less than 300 meters, meaning they cannot be detected by radar. So it is specifically for Ukraine, and we are happy about it, but it is not enough because we want to see in the skies of Ukraine not 100, not 200, but 500 F-16 airplanes. We want to see Patriot systems, not 5, not 10. There should be a minimum of 30, minimum of 50. All the more joyful was the fact that right at this summit, it was said that the European Union, Europe will allocate $90 to $100 billion to Ukraine. So, the money is there. It's up to Trump, and given that Trump has for the first time given the go-ahead, even saying several times, by the way, that he is taking responsibility for the security of Ukrainian skies. This is an amazing achievement, and it is not by chance that I started talking about the fact that I believe that if suddenly, and most likely everything is leaning towards this, if the war drags on, even for 2 and 3 months, then imagine our troops will be in Ukraine. There is no doubt about that. Boris Yakovlevich, but Donald Trump says that there will definitely be no Americans on the territory of Ukraine. Yeah, but that's what all presidents have said. And he'll say this, he'll be complimenting Putin. He will praise him again. This is our redhead Trump. What can we do with him, my friends? He was like that in the first cadence. He called Putin a friend, and he called Kim a friend, and he called Xi Jinping a friend. He wants to negotiate with the Ayatollah. What did he do to the Houthis? Tell me. 0. And he promised hell to Hamas. No hell. And the Hussites hit Israel almost every day. You can imagine, right? This half-heartedness of Trump and this stupid rhetoric complimenting dictators, they are already hitting his image. Understandably, there were no such wars in the first cadence. He could throw around phrases. But today, it is a different world. Today, we see a real genocide on Ukrainian soil. While the summit in Washington is going on, missiles are falling on Ukraine. It's gotten to the point where even the great Melania, Trump's wife, says to her husband, "Look, you say one thing, look at the TV screen, there are houses collapsing, peaceful people are being killed." Moreover, she took the initiative to help Ukrainians get back 35,000 Ukrainian children, my friends. This is a real genocide, a real Hitler period of the 21st century. We need to bring back 35,000 of these children who are being forcibly taught Russian there by Russians trying to Russify them. That's it. Beat the Ukrainian out of them. What's that called? I think Melania is not getting off Trump in every sense of the word. She's going to keep going after him until he gets that 35,000 out of Putin. I think that one of the positives of this meeting in Washington will be the exchange of prisoners of war and the beginning of a movement to return children. Although Putin has already said that he is willing to return Ukrainian children in exchange for prisoners of war. It's immoral, despicable, another crime on the conscience of this Hitler of the 21st century. But nevertheless, the children must be taken out at any cost. Children must be brought back. And thank you, Melania. She will go down in history. If it happens, it will be awesome. And I think Trump can't say no to her. Melania is Melania.